Welcome to another Sacred Conversation with Kristen Ballas. She is going to give us the update, the forecast for the month of July 2026. Kristen is an astronumerologist, and she's also the author in our Sacred Wisdom anthology. Welcome, Kristen. I'm so delighted to have you here again.
Thank you, Pamela. I'm glad to be here. I love talking about this stuff, as you know.
I do know. I love it too.
So let's jump in. July is going to be different from June in that there's similarities and differences because we no longer have that sixth energy, kind of slowing things down, keeping us in one direction, so to speak. The six is pretty. It can slow things down. This month is not going to be slow. It's going to be fast. We have the 7 and 8 energy this month. So, Pamela, I know you know some things about numerology, quite a bit actually. You know, if with a 7-8 combo, things are going to move, right?
hmm Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm excited. It's been this first part of the year has just flown by, and you've given us so much wisdom to get us to this point. And now let's dive into what we have in store for us for this month. I'm so excited.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that yes, this year feels like it has flown by, but at the same time, what have we accomplished so far? I know for myself, I thought I was going to be in a completely different place by now than I am. And it's been feeling a little bit like walking through quicksand for most of the year. It kind of got a little better in the past couple months, but still like not the really fast big changes that I was hoping for in the amount of time that I wanted. And it's really been a reinforcement of the lesson of trusting the divine timing, trusting where we are in the process and that, this one energy year, and I explained this at the beginning of the year and probably brought it up since then, just because we're in the new cycle, it doesn't mean that we're done clearing stuff out. The nine doesn't finish and it's like, oh, you're done clearing things. In fact, the one brings up so much awareness, you realize how much more work you still have to do. And so, yes, it's intention setting. Yes, it's, moving into the new. Yes, it's trying new things. But it's also like been very focused this year on our identities and who are we and who do we want to be and who have we been showing up as and is that aligned? And so I feel like that's a big theme that's been running throughout this entire year and it continues into July. So how have you been feeling about that?
Yeah, a lot of stuff has come up. I have so many more awarenesses over the first 6 months of this year, and just really settling in to my own body, my heart. And just feel that it's been, I think, gentler than a lot of people's energy and what they have experienced this so far this year. But it is really uh, knowing the the cycle that we're in and paying attention to it. And your forecast helps so much with that. Yeah.
I'm so glad. Yeah, it really is important to understand the cycles. And as we're going into July, it'll be the 8 energy month. It's the seventh month of the year. So those are the two numbers that are going to be majorly at play this month, as well as the number two, because it's 2026. So we've always got two twos in the date, and sometimes we have three twos. And so those are the big numbers that play out in July. And when we look at that and we look at where we are in the cycle of nine, we're coming up, we're in the 8, and then August will be the 9. So, we're completing a cycle. We're getting close to the completion of that cycle. But still, like, what are we completing? And I think that, when I started this year, I felt like it was going to be more of like, oh, I have these intentions I want to set, and they'll come to fruition and harvest in, you know, July and August. And that is happening, but it's nothing like what I thought it was going to be.
Right.
So, and I think that's happening for a lot of people. We're completing a cycle right now. So as we move into July, we'll be in momentum. And that comes right before the transformation and transmutation, which is, like you just landed what you were trying to create, and now what, right? But we're in that momentum piece now where, things are starting to show up physically. So most of the cycle is inner, which we've talked about before. And this is now going to be the external physical part of the cycle that's showing up, right? That we're getting the feedback from the outside world and it's going to come at us fast. It's the karmic return of everything we've been working on all year. So we'll be getting that feedback on the outside, and yet that seven is still present there in July, being the seventh month of the year. So it's going to still say yes, but what is coming out externally starts internally. And if you don't like what you see coming out externally, you need to go back in and re-examine where the alignment is off. It's that constant alignment check. I just had to do car repairs, and it's like I'm thinking, right, your alignment check, right? Your alignment with your wheels, and are they aligned? Are they wearing evenly everywhere? And that's like what we're going to be getting a lot of this month, is that, that balance between, okay, if we don't like what we're seeing out there, what we're seeing out there is what we've been creating internally all year. So if we don't like it, then you got to go back in, check, make adjustments. And I really feel like this whole month is going to be about like movement, lots of movement, both internally and externally, and repositioning. And it's all around that identity. It's all around the whole identity theme of the whole year. Who are we? How do we want to show up authentically, in integrity? Because the eight wants those things,
Mm.
right? So the eight's calling us into more authenticity, more integrity, more of our personal power, and our self-expression to come through authentically, a willingness to be seen for who we really are. And we've talked about this for years now, that this is where we've been pushed to go as we're going through this consciousness shift. But this month, it's really, we're going to see the momentum of that. That's what I was really asking myself and my guides when I was doing this forecast was, what are we in a momentum of? And it's like, well, it's not really about the external intentions we set at the beginning of the year or even at the last new moon. It's really a momentum of that identity shift. And it's not only how others view us, but how we view and think of ourselves. And I think that's really what we're going to be in a momentum of here.
I love this so much. And so just for people who don't really understand the numbers, so because you talk about a 7-8 combination. So the
Yeah.
seven, as you said, is the month, the seventh month of the year, but the eight is also the year is a one. So it's 7 plus 1, and that's how you get the eight.
Yes, absolutely. That is where that comes from. Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, because that is important. If you're not that as familiar with numerology, where are these numbers coming from, right? So yes, and that's why the energy of the month shifts from year to year. So July won't be an eight energy month. Next year it'll be another no, another number. So and then and so on. So each month shifts every year that you go through because of how you add it to the year number.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love to that you're talking about how go back in if you're feeling like you're not in alignment, because it is about integrity. So if we're not being integral with ourselves, then we need to look at where and why, and that's
Mhm.
inner work. I love that you mentioned that. That's so good.
Yeah, and because that seven is still present, that seven is always about making adjustments so that things are more lined up the way they need to be,
Mhm.
and And both numbers are trusting ourselves, trusting our intuition. They come in a little bit different package. The seven is more intuitive and the eight is more knowing, but it comes down to the same thing, you know? Eights just know stuff. The sevens tap into their intuition, so it gives you basically the same result. And it's going to be heightened this month because the eight is going to amplify everything. So you're gonna feel that connection wanting to come through stronger. And are you choosing to listen? You know, are you listening to the nudges? Sometimes they're so quiet and subtle, but
Yeah.
they're there. And, you know, it could be a feeling in your body. It could be a thought just pops in your mind. It could be, you know, comes through a dream or something someone says or whatever. But you know, are you paying attention? It could come through nature, you know, especially with that seven energy present. It could come from anywhere. You're going to get feedback all around you. Keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, keep your heart open to that feedback because it'll be really, really pivotal in how you set yourself up for August. And August is going to be a big month because it's eclipse season again.
Right.
So we'll talk about that next month, but as we end out July, we will be starting the pre-shadow of eclipse season. And so what we do this month in July is really a lot of tweaking and adjustments again so that we are prepared to go into eclipse season. So I feel like this month, because we open the month, I'll tell you what we open the month and close the month on, because I feel like that bookends the month to really give us a flavor. We open the month on an Ace of Spades day with a nine energy. Both the Ace of Spades and the nine are very transformative energies. So I feel like that is going to be a big theme this month again. You know, there's a lot of shifts and changes. And, you know, the Ace of Spades is the card of the Magi, which, you know, we're the keepers of the wisdom and knowledge of numerology. And you know, it's the protectors of the metaphysical tools that we have. And that is the bridge between the seen and the unseen world. That's what the Ace of Spades really calls us into. And then we end the month on a double Ten of Hearts day. So, you know, we're ending the month with a big, I think a big heart opening is happening toward the end of the month there. I believe that there's going to be an opening of again, with that balance between both worlds, giving and receiving, you know, really understanding at a deeper level, at a heartfelt level, how that works, how that flow works. I believe that there's going to be a lot of theme around that and that balancing the three-dimensional world with the fifth dimensional world with the spiritual realm, you know. So I think it's going to be a very expansive month for us. And yet it's not the grand finale. The grand finale is in August. So it'll be interesting, you know, with so much going on in July and then knowing that August is coming, it's like, whoa, you know?
Yeah. When you were talking about the end of the month, and what was the card again? It was a heart.
Ten of Hearts,
Ten of
double ten of
hearts. Yeah.
hearts.
Okay. And then you were talking about giving and receiving. And for me, whenever I think about that, it's always the law of reciprocity. And so
Hmm.
we're moving into this, and you know, many of us are already in this awareness of how potent the law of reciprocity is in giving and taking. You can't have a giver without a receiver, and vice versa. And
Right.
and so I have really good friends who they love giving, and then when I reciprocate, they're like, oh, no, no. And I'm like, okay, first of all, you know how much you love giving? You're denying me that same energy and this beautiful exchange. And it really clicks in for people when they understand that
Yeah.
they're denying the other person the gift of giving. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, and that's really, really key, you know, and if you've run into any issues with flow, you know, that's something to examine. Are you on one side or the other too much.
Mhm.
You know, where are you overgiving or where are you taking too much and not giving enough? Usually with people in our realm, it's overgiving and not receiving, but that's not always the case, you know. So I always like to say it can go either way.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something I think that we will be adjusting and looking at more closely this month. Here's why. So when we end the month of June, which this is being recorded on June 28th, and we're about to have a full moon tomorrow. And that full moon in Capricorn, I talked about in the June forecast, but it's going to shake things up. So everything that we've been working on since the beginning of the year, this full moon is coming in and saying, no, it's time to probably throw all of this out, or at least a big thing of it, and start something new, like new direction, new overhaul the plan, basically, because Capricorn's making the plans, right? I feel like there's going to be an overhaul of the plan. You know, so what I was talking about with, you know, here's what I intended for the year, and I'm not anywhere where I thought I would be with it. Um, that's going to be like, okay, well, maybe that wasn't the right direction, and that's why you're not where you want to be with it. And, you know, is it time to overhaul the plan? Is it time to change the plan? Is it time to go, you know what, this plan isn't panning out? Like, when do you surrender and accept that, you know? And I think a lot of people tomorrow, with this energy, are going to be experiencing that. You know, it's going to be like, we're going to get the information we need, though. It's not going to be a guessing game. It's going to be, you know, all of a sudden it's going to be like, oh, like, okay, well, that isn't working. So now I got to come up with something new. Like, this isn't working, you know? And I feel like we'll get the information about what's not working, why, and I think that will help us decide what direction to go. Or, you know, really, if we've been too caught up in listening to our minds or our fears instead of listening to our higher self, our intuition, our soul-led um, you know, our soul-led guidance. Um, I feel like that's where people may be getting a jolt
Yeah.
tomorrow, you know, a wake-up call, a hey, this, you need to accept that this isn't working. So what messages have you been ignoring all year?
Yeah.
You know, or what have you been procrastinating on? Because that's a very low side of the one energy year thing to do. What have you been procrastinating on because you think this other thing has to happen first before you can do this?
Right.
So you know you want to do this other thing, but you feel like it has to be either or it has to go in a certain order. And I feel like this full moon is going to say, no, no, you've got that all wrong. And that's why you're being stalled out, you know?
Mhm.
And interestingly enough, my car stalled out a couple weeks ago. That's what was wrong with it. I don't know if I told you that, Pamela. I know I told you I had car stuff, but it literally stalled out and stranded me. And I think this is one of the messages I'm getting, but I do believe that I'm not the only one.
No.
And I know that because I've been talking to a lot of people and observing what other people are experiencing as well. And I think that's a big part of what's going on right now is this full moon has been coming in, and you know, even the lead up to it has already produced the effects of, like, you're being shown that this isn't working, so why do you keep pursuing? You know, this
Yeah.
is this has to change, you know? And I think getting the message really clearly right before we start July and move into that momentum energy officially, we're already feeling it coming in,
Mm.
but moving into it officially is different. And so, you know, can we get the message and readjust in the next couple of days to make that adjustment so that when the energy opens up in July, we're ready,
Right. Yeah.
you know? But if you're not, It's okay. You're
Yeah.
going to get a chance to fix it all through July.
Right. I know. Well, a couple of key things that you talked about was, and I teach this in my process in writing, is that we need to come into coherence first, and then we need to listen. And so, are we hearing those messages, and are they loud and clear? And what are those messages? Are we procrastinating? Is there something that we really desire? Because if we desire it, it desires us.
Yeah.
Like, right? And so are we really in tune with that, right? And then go into the, so for in my process, it's coherence, then listening, and then creating, not creating and then and then see what happens.
Right, right.
So
Exactly.
this is so important and so key when you said that we need to be listening.
We do. We really do. You know, and I don't want to go into all of the planet stuff because I can do that in other videos, but there's a lot of planetary movement going on this month. So even the planets are repositioning. And I think that's important to note because, the external environment is mimicking what's happening for us internally. And, there's a lot of planets moving around. There's a new retrograde starting with Neptune and Saturn this month. Tomorrow we begin Mercury retrograde right before we go into July. So there's a lot happening. There's a lot of repositioning. Venus and Mars are moving around. Like everybody's changing places. Jupiter's repositioning tomorrow into to sorry, Leo. And so, like, all of this is happening, right? There's a lot of repositioning going on. So, even the planets are reflecting what I'm talking about. But, I want to talk a little bit before we go, just a little deeper about those 7 and 8 energies, because, the 7 we talked about last month. So, I don't want to spend too much time on that, but it's a major player this month. And the 7 is, about trusting your intuition, trusting yourself, the discernment, right? Alignment, belief, faith, freedom, taking action, learning through mistakes and loss. So we're going to learn as we go again this month. That's what that's about. It's not about like waiting till you have all the facts and how you're going to do it. You figure out the how as you go. It's trial and error. And just, learning more. Teaching is another 7 thing. And I feel like a lot of people are maybe starting to think, what do I know and what can I share with other people? Whether it's a formal teaching thing or whether it's informal and mentoring or something like that. But, there's a lot of wisdom that we have that wants to come through, and the 8 is really about momentum and focus, commitment, devotion, that legacy energy, like creating something that's going to last, that personal power, strength, patience. The 8 loves precision and integrity, authenticity, cultivation, which is, what I'm saying. We're preparing right now. We're cultivating what we've been working on all year for that final completion in August. The devotion, the mastery. So we're cultivating our identities, though. That's what we were talking about earlier. Independence and abundance are big 8 themes. Gratitude is an excellent way to work with the 8 and the 1. So being in a 1 energy year and then being in the 8 energy month, I would definitely, definitely, definitely recommend a lot of gratitude practice, not just at the beginning or end of your day, but like throughout the day. Just remind yourself to be grateful for whatever, because it will really help you tap into the higher side of that 8 energy and the higher side of the 1 and even the higher side of the 7. Gratitude just brings you into a higher vibration. Like I said, the 8s just know things. So trust. If you feel like you know something that to be true, whether you have proof of it or not, trust yourself in that. If you're feeling a feeling, a gut feeling inside or something like that, trust it. And then another great way to work with the 8 energy this month is meditation, slow, intentional movement, and really Putting your blinders on because there'll be a lot of distractions coming up. When momentum hits, a lot of distractions. And the biggest thing I can say is don't give up. Don't give up because that is a lower expression of the eight. It can come through. Anxiety can come through, feeling out of control. Impatience with this 7-8 combination could be a big issue to watch out for. So practice patience, be patient, let things happen in their time. I really feel like those are the biggest things that I can say about these energies. We will see people in all kinds of emotional outbursts, anger, depression, giving up, being reactionary, being bullies, being anxious and impatient, abusing power or bullying. Those are things that can happen with the 8 and the low side. So I don't feel like any of you are necessarily going to fall into that, but you will see other people doing it. And so this helps you understand why. And it helps you be compassionate, but also not get caught up in their drama. So I think that that's where the blinders on thing comes in, because the 2 energy, which is also very present all year, might have you wanting to get involved in a way that's not healthy. So just be mindful that, how can you support and love and help others and support and love and help yourself and not cross your personal boundaries. And I think that's really important to practice during these really interesting energetic times. I also just want to point out from a higher perspective or a more universal perspective, we can expect activism to be on the increase this month as well, because the 8 energy brings that in. So with things going on around the world, we may see more acts of protest, or, people trying to come together to find solutions to some of these things that have been happening that we're not okay with. You still with me, Pamela?
I am. I have my alarm going off.
Oh, the timing. Isn't that fun? And
Sorry
there's
about
Mercury
that.
retrograde right there, right?
Right. So I went on mute just
Mute right at the moment when I paused. You gotta love that.
Oh, anyway, yeah. Oh, so much good information there. Is there anything else that you want to share, or we'll leave the forecast there? Well, how are you feeling about that?
No, I think that we'll do some more detailed stuff as the month moves forward. But this gives you a great overview of what to expect this month and kind of how to work with the energy overall, and understanding we're in the setup for the eclipse season right now. Yes, the 2 weeks preceding the actual eclipse are the official setup. But when you look at the big picture of this month and see everything moving around and moving into place for the big grand finale, it's like you can't make that up. You can't miss that, I mean, unless you're just totally not paying attention. But as a forecaster, if I didn't say that to you guys, like I would not be doing my job. That is what's happening right now. Like all the players are behind the scenes getting in position for their big the big grand finale. So, it's just, yeah, you can't make this stuff up. I just looked at it and I'm like, of course.
Yeah, yeah, and how wonderful that we're coming into summer in our part of the hemisphere. And so summer is kind of a time to slow down, even though we want to continue to do the things, but it allows us to slow down and really look at what's in front of us and ask those questions. You ask some really powerful questions through the forecast, and I'll capture those for the listeners. But it really lets us just slow down and be with the energies and set ourselves up, right, to live our very best life. And yeah,
Absolutely.
and I think
And I love
everybody,
that you brought the slow down up, because that is a great way to work with the 8 energy too. As the energy speeds up, the best way to do it is slow down. Take those pauses, take those moments to stop and breathe and listen in. Don't just take action to take action because everything's moving fast around you. Just take your time and do it intentionally. That's the key word for the year is intentionality. So yeah, great way to end it, I think.
Well, thank you. And thanks
Yeah.
to the listeners. We'd love to know what your biggest takeaway was. If you want to share down in the comments, that would be awesome. And of course, connect with Kristen if you have not already connected with this masterful person. Thank you.
And Pamela will put in the notes how to do that. And also just let us know in the comments. Like, I'm so curious to see what big thing happens at this full moon tomorrow on June 29th. So if you know what's going on with that, please comment below because I would love to hear what's happening for you as well. So
All right.
yeah, but hey, make it a great month, guys.